Welcome to Psychic Bent. My name is Carrie.
And I'm Kim. We are two sisters wanting to help other psychics learn and grow in their abilities and to help educate about spirits, angels, and everything psychic. Welcome back, listeners, to Psychic Bent. Thank you so much for joining us today. In this episode, Carrie and I would like to discuss, finally, the Akashic Records. It has been a long time coming. I know we've pushed it off week after week after week, but we're finally going to be covering what the Akashic Records are and how to access them and how they got started and everything. Carrie, would you like to start us off on the Akashic Records?
Yes, we weren't pushing it off because we didn't want to do it.
Right.
We were pushing it off because other episodes seem to be more important, like the Valentine's Day episode should be at Valentine's Day. So, okay, we pushed it back. And, some things we were led more to cover first. But it's been on the list for a while.
Yeah, a long while.
Yeah, a long while. Part of it, I think, is the timing. When is the timing right?
Mm-hmm.
And it just feels like the timing for the Akashic Record is right now for us. So here we go. Now, I'm not sure if everybody is familiar what even the Akashic Records are, and it's AKASHIC, but it is basically thought about like a database or an infinite library full of information about a person's soul. So what that means is your soul has lived many lives, and this is a way of accessing past, present, and future with your soul. So it's not to go and visit somebody else's soul. It's all about your soul and getting information from that. It's like an imprint registered through impulse, feelings, thoughts, spoken words, and actions. And it's just basically overflowing with information. Now, having said that, when you do decide that you're wanting to access your Akashic Records, you're only going to get the information that helps you with where you're at now or what you need to know for now. So you're not going to get this massive download moment where you're going to know the history of life. It's more about what you need to know pertaining to the question you're asking, whether you're looking at a past life or you're stuck in something this life or something future, to help you with what you need to know at that point. Does that make sense, Kim?
Yeah, it does.
Now, the origins of Akashic Records is ancient. The Akashic Record is referenced in Hinduism, Buddhism, ancient Egypt, and Greece, and they all recognized this cosmic repository of collective wisdom. Today, the Akashic Records are understood through Theosophy lens of a religious and spiritual movement based on ancient religions such as Buddhism. Some people, your New Agers believe in it. I've accessed the Akashic Records before. Have you, Kim?
No, I have not.
I feel it takes you a few times before you really get comfortable and start trusting the information. Because like with anything new, left brain starts to say, yeah, that's not going to work, or that doesn't make sense, or ego steps up and like, what are you doing? This is silly. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like with anytime you try something new, the self-doubt comes in, you're not grounded because you're overanalyzing, is this going to work? What do I want to ask? You put that big pressure again on a question.
Yeah, right.
So I think that when you start to do this, you really want to kind of think through the process and see there's many different types of way of accessing the Akashic Records and try to see which one works best for you. But like I said, you're going to get information that is basically what you need to know. It's going to be relevant to if you want clarity, guidance, you got an important life event, or you just want to understand your purpose. You want to try to use the Akashic Records for this. If you're going through a spiritual awakening, which most people that listen to this podcast are going through a spiritual awakening, if you feel you need extra guidance or how to open up new possibilities, accessing your Akashic Record might be helpful to you.
Exactly.
Yeah, if you're feeling stagnant in your growth, another reason to do this. If you're feeling stuck or blocked, there's obviously something that either a past life or limiting beliefs, or you're having a struggle with self-worth. Those could all be things that are keeping you blocked and not moving forward. So that would be a wonderful reason to want to access your Akashic Records, is to find out what is the block.
Mm-hmm.
Is it something from a past life you're dealing with? Limiting beliefs, I think, is huge.
Yeah.
And I think that's a constant struggle. Doesn't matter where you're at in your growth. I think we're just have that ingrained in us.
Mm-hmm. I agree. That's one
Yes.
thing that I think I've had a difficult time, because I know it's there. I really want to access it. I have to figure out what questions am I after, but yet I still have to get to the point to where I trust in it completely and can let go and be open to it.
I came across this in the research, and it was an aha moment. I'm like, duh. But one of the articles I researched said, if you're not sure how to ask the question, think of it as if you're going to put it in the Google search engine.
Mm-hmm.
What would you put?
Yeah, I saw that too.
And it wasn't that like a moment. It's like, duh, okay, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
We try to overcomplicate. And we've touched on this before. And when you're brought up in certain strict religious environments, not the meaning of your prayer, but how the words you use are more judged. The more eloquent prayer gets heard is the impression that you sometimes get.
Right. The simple thank you, amen, and that was
Yeah.
looked down upon. Yeah, because that's not saying graciously how you feel.
But that's more from the heart. So if you're trying to come up with an elaborate paragraph to offer for the Akashic record, then you're probably not going to get an answer, is what I'm saying.
Right.
Because you're putting too much thought into how I'm going to ask and not what the actual question is. So I think that was a great example, was imagine you're putting it into a Google search. And in this day and age, it might be easier in your meditative state to visualize that.
Yeah.
Because, how many times do you Google something in a day?
I don't count anymore.
Some of us more than others.
Yeah, I don't count anymore.
And I do want to point out that the Akashic Records is your soul record. Everybody has access to the Akashic Records.
Mm-hmm.
This is not something that you don't have to be a practicing psychic or a psychic medium to have access to it. Anybody could access it. If you're just wanting to work on just connecting with your spiritual growth, and you're wanting to just help yourself move on, but you don't feel that you're far enough in your spiritual psychic journey, you could still go through and access the Akashic Records. Don't think that you have to be at a certain level of development, because we all develop differently. We all develop in the time frame we're supposed to, not that we're trying to push for.
Mm-hmm.
It's very important to know that everybody has access to it, but it's also a safe place because it's your soul records. So there's nothing dark there. There's nothing frightening there. There's nothing to be afraid of. And if you're having any of these anxiety issues or any of these things like, fear or whatnot, then you're not grounded. And you may want to re-examine the process you're using to get into the Akashic Records. And Kim, you're going to go into that, right? How to get into the Akashic Records?
Yes. I have some on that. Yeah.
So, if you're not feeling in a safe space, or you're not feeling that this is good, then possibly ego's in the room. Left brain's talking and not being quiet. And you need to reground yourself and just kind of quiet the mind and then try it again. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Okay. So do you want to talk about the preparation you need to do before starting this journey?
Okay. So the first thing that you need to do is identify what your intentions for accessing the Akashic Records. That means that, what do you want to know? You have to ask yourself that. What do you want to know, and how might this knowledge help you? And you want to clarify this for yourself before you even begin. Not knowing what you're wanting to find out or get information on, if you don't know what that is before you go in there, you're not going to get any answers. And
yeah, you should be very distracted.
Correct. Intention is very important to find out what it is that you are actually wanting to know. So you want to take the time to determine what that is. what you want from the records. The more focused you can be with your question, the better the results you're going to have getting an answer. First thing you can do is just writing it down. Write down specific questions about your past lives that you might want to know. So you make a list of questions, topics of interest. Try to make your questions as specific as possible, because if you're expecting a long paragraphed answer or a dissertation, that's not going to happen. It's going to be simple answers that you're going to get back. It may be pictures, it may be a word or single words, it could be whispered words that you get. Does that make sense?
Well, I think however you get your psychic hits is how you're probably going to get your Akashic record hits.
Right.
Don't you agree?
Yeah, that's what
So
I
if
was
you're-
trying to phrase it. Thanks.
Yeah, if you're clairvoyant and you've worked that muscle and your clairvoyancy is really excelled, you're probably going to see more clairvoyant answers, like the movie running or the pictures. Or if you're clairaudient, you might hear one word. You don't normally get a big paragraph on a psychic hit.
Right, exactly.
How you get your psychic hit is how you're going to get your information.
Right. And how the Akashic Records looks is how you determine it to be, or how it is to you. Everybody can have their own individual experiences because you're only accessing your portion. There are other portions that could be available to you if it is what you need to know at that time.
Exactly, yeah. And that's what's important. What you need to know at that point in your time in your life, right then.
Right. So one of the questions you could write down is something like, what professions did I have in my past lives? Or where did I live in my past lives? Have I ever experienced any tragedy in my past lives that affected my current life? That may be something you're trying to work through, is an anxiety or a fear or something that you might have that you don't know where that came from. And as we've talked before, it could have come from a past life. And this is how you can try to determine the answer to that fear, is by accessing these Akashic records.
Like Kim's fear of being in a car accident.
Yeah, exactly.
Or Kim's fear of heights.
Yeah, or the fear my car is going to go off the road into deep waters and I can't get out.
So that's right. So those are perfect questions on past life while visiting the Akashic Records. I did a past life regression, but I before that worked and did an Akashic record. I guess you call it a review. I guess that's what you call it, because of a past life situation, and it kind of got me on the road to doing the past life regression, which brought me to. I shared it before on the podcast that it was 400, 500 AD, getting to put on a pyre. It was helping me address some personal doubts about my abilities, because in a past life it seemed that I was killed by clergy for my gifts.
Mm-hmm.
So that Akashic record kind of put me on the path of, this is a block you have from this other life you had. And so then I worked with doing past life regression to deal with it.
Right.
And that's kind of what you're doing if you have a block, you want to know, okay, what do I need to do to change this pattern? Because a lot of times we carry things to our current lives from past lives.
Right.
And you're unaware, like, why do you have this phobia? This phobia makes no sense.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
I mean, I have a huge phobia of spiders.
You're not alone. So
I call them nopes.
Yep.
Nope. Nope. I'm out of here. Nope. Not messing with you. I'm done. Like, nope.
Yeah.
Is that was I attacked by a spider in another life? I mean, why is this fear of spiders?
Right.
Well, that's one of the questions. And it may sound silly, but if you have this ingrained fear, then maybe you need to know the answer to why.
Right.
Was it something in a past life? Is it part of a blockage?
Exactly.
Am I just crazy? Don't like spiders? It could be many things here.
Yep.
Yeah. Don't judge your questions that you're asking, because obviously if it comes up, it is something that's ingrained, or you're being led to either correct a behavior from a past life or identify something that happened to you. Maybe you were wronged in a past life and you have carried that feeling with you. And if you don't try to identify, and you visit the Akashic Records and you identify what that was, I was wronged back in the 500s by clergy and was more likely burned as a witch, is what I got out of the whole thing. That would make sense with my aversion with clergymen.
No, that's true.
Yeah. And it's got nothing, I don't know them. I mean, it could be very nice people. It's my instinct is to, oh no, I'm going this way. And that would have to do with it. That would be something I carried in from a past life that needed to be dealt with.
Mm-hmm.
That was hampering my growth, because if I'm begrudging someone just because their occupation is clergy, well, that's not fair. That's not right. But it was one of those where I'm just like, nope. And it made no sense.
Exactly.
A visit to the Akashic Record, and you're like, okay, that's what I needed to know at that time.
Right. And you were able to identify it and work through that aggression or anger.
Yeah, and I was open to it.
Right. Exactly. So another thing that you could also focus a question on is decisions that could affect your current life, what you're currently doing now. When writing it down, you want to express the problem you've been having and then state or ask for the information you need to help solve it. And this will help narrow down your search and make any information you find more relevant to the current experience you're having. And a question like, I'm considering moving to a different city, but I change my mind a lot. Is there anything in my past that would help me to understand if this is the best choice for me? Something like that.
The way that you phrase that question is very good, because it's a simple yes or no.
Right. Small, simple answers you'll get.
Yeah. It's not like you're asking 5 questions. It's like, I've only got so much time. I'm going to get all these questions asked right now. Or you're asking a question that's complicated to answer.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Because, you're more than likely not going to get an answer to that, because it's too complicated and the answer wouldn't serve you, because you wouldn't be able to understand the answer.
Right, because it's easier to interpret the simple and the small than it is the long and wordy words.
So if you ask an open-ended question versus a yes and no question, your confidence in dealing with the Akashic Records will grow. And then you could start to ask maybe a simple open-ended question and get an answer.
Right. So you always want to plan on asking, or narrow it down to the one question at that time. So by focusing it on one question in the one sitting, it'll make it so much easier for clarity, to get clarity on an issue, get the one aspect of your life at a time during tarot readings.
Where you're going with, you're trying to figure out your questions, and you're probably going to have more than one question that you want to answer to, like you were saying.
Mm-hmm.
One tool in your psychic toolbox to help you zero in on which of those questions you're supposed to ask at this time. Because these are all good questions that you're going to need to know the answers at one point, but you may not need to know any of those answers right now except for one. So I would recommend having a piece of paper, write each question on a piece of paper, spread them out, and take your pendulum and ask the pendulum, which question should I focus on with my Akashic Records, and see where the pendulum points.
Right.
Because I use my pendulum. I know I use my pendulum a lot. If it's your first time doing the Akashic, you're overthinking, you're trying not to overthink, that would be one way of, you've got your questions, now I have to pick one. Well, now you have the pressure if I got to pick one. And then you slip into that, well, which is the best one to ask? Not necessarily, what question do I need to ask now?
Right.
And use your pendulum. And just spirit will guide it to the question you need to ask now. And if your pendulum is just doing circles, then you may want to reevaluate your questions. What is it, what you really want to know?
Right. So,
did I mess you up?
No, not at all. Not at all.
Okay.
You brought it back to the tarot cards for me, so I want to go there, and you took us there, and that's the same thing, pendulum and the tarot. So
well, it's another tool in the toolbox.
Exactly. All right. Of course, you need to be in a place that's very quiet, that you're going to have time to sit there and not be interrupted by anything or anybody for a time. It's not going to be 5 minutes and you're done to get to that point. Find a place like, I don't know, your bedroom that you can close the door, your quiet space that you've set aside for your meditations and such. You're going to balance and ground yourself before you venture on and enter into some specific Akashic reading procedure. You first want to connect with your higher self, which is what we do in all of our meditations. And like I said, you want to at least you could do a 10-15 minute meditation that is specifically geared towards the Akashic Records. The purpose is to be raising your vibration up very high, because I believe the Akashic Records are on like the fifth plane, and we've talked about the different astral planes and such that are out there. So the astral or ether plane is the fifth plane, and you need to raise your vibrations to get up there, because right now we're on the third plane. You're also going to do a lot of breath work to release any of the fears and the worry before actually entering into the Akashic Records. Of course, you want to do that meditation or prayer for the Akashic Records readings. There's many books, there's so many references out there that you could look up on the Akashic Records, but you have to find the one that resonates most with you and your beliefs before you can go in. Because if you follow what I do, whenever I start my journey with the Akashic Records, it may not be what works for you. And it's not going to be what Carrie does. So you just have to find which one works best for you.
And Kim and I were talking offline about how it's important to, if you're going to do a guided meditation, to don't just jump in and start meditating. Listen to that meditation first to make sure it resonates with you.
Right. Or read through that prayer that you may find, or the mantra that you may find. Whatever. Read through it first to make certain that is something that does check the box for you.
And another thing on the meditation is, if it's a guided meditation and they're using different, like an elevator or a hallway and doors, you may need to prepare yourself beforehand on, well, what do you want your door to look like? So you recognize your door. So during the meditation, you're not going, well, which door is it? And now you're no longer in the moment. Now you're trying to left brain, which door is it? If they have many doors in a hallway, you need to know what color your door is. So when you go into the meditation, that door is going to be there.
Right. Another thing that I just thought of on this subject before you actually start doing your meditation, don't forget to smudge your area. You can light candles, burn incense, anything that helps you relax and have positive energy where you're going to be doing this meditation. One thing that I also read is, and I know a lot of people fall asleep when they do their meditations, but this one did say, if you are one that doesn't fall asleep during your meditations, to lay down on your back and put your hand on your stomach, which is to help keep you grounded with your root chakra as you're doing your breath work. I found that to be interesting.
Well, when you have your hands on your stomach and you're doing breath work, you're more focusing on your breathing, which is helping with your meditation.
Right.
Because now you're focused on it, because you can't feel your hand go up, you feel your hand go down.
Right.
As you expel the breath, as you breathe in.
Yeah. So I could see where that could help you connect to the root chakra for the grounding.
Yeah, and it'll help keep you focused.
Mm-hmm.
And not asleep.
Right. But if you're one that falls asleep, you can still sit and do the same thing. Put your hand on your stomach and you can help ground yourself that way. Meditate on your question while you're getting into that deeply relaxed state. And once you really get in there and you feel relaxed, you're going to clear your mind of all thoughts except for that one question that you're trying to find the answer to.
And that's another reason why your question shouldn't be elaborate.
Right.
Because once you're in that meditative state, are you going to remember an elaborate sentence?
No, well, I know I wouldn't. I'd be too busy worrying about if I got all the words right.
So that's another reason to make sure that when you're ready for this to start, that your question is concise.
Mm-hmm. try repeating your question like a mantra to stay focused. If you notice your thoughts straying to the day-to-day concerns or things that you've got to get done when you're finished with this, try your best to redirect yourself back to the mantra and continue meditating. Of course, there's also guided meditations everywhere, like we said before. Once you've been meditating 5 minutes or longer, you may be able to access the Akashic Records and request permission by asking aloud or silently, which I usually do silently myself. You can ask a question such as, I am seeking information about my past lives. May I please access the Akashic Records to find what I seek? And then you ask your question and you continue breathing. Now you may hear or feel or see. Let me rewind that a little bit. What I found in my records, and Carrie, you can confirm this if this happened with you, that there are guides, more or less, that are there to help you access your Akashic Records.
Yes.
That's who you are asking to please help you with the information that you are needing for the question that you are asking.
Yeah, the particular one that I did, which was a guided meditation, because to me, if I'm doing something new, I prefer the guided just because it's a little easier and I don't have to focus on my words on what am I doing, am I doing this right? On the particular one that I did with the Akashic Records, it was a couple years ago, and my room was lined with books, and there was a pedestal in the middle with a big old book on it, and then there was a man there, and his job was to direct me. The way that this particular guided meditation went was I was just to open the book and then look at the page, and that was my answer. Or that was something that was going to lead me to the next step of actually taking me somewhere else.
Okay. So you were being guided to where you needed to be at that time. Yeah.
My room was packed with books. Your room may not look like that.
Right. Exactly.
I had tables loaded with scrolls. It was not very organized, which made sense for me. Because there were piles of books, piles of things, and there was bookshelves, so it was kind of things that were being used, I guess. Not everything on the shelf, neat, tidy, clean. Like Kim's room would probably be neat, tidy, clean.
Probably. I don't know.
Yeah.
Mine probably look like a spaceship or something, knowing me.
Yeah. So your records are going to look different. What I see isn't what you're going to see.
Right.
And vice versa. A lot of it has to do with how you assimilate information, how Spirit wants to show this to you, how the Akashic Records are going to unfold. It may not be a room filled with dusty books.
Right. But there is going to be a higher spirit, a higher being there to help you access those actual records.
Yeah, and just because mine was a man doesn't mean that's what you're going to see.
Right.
You may not see anybody. You just might hear a voice.
Or you just might see a light. You just might see color. It could be whatever it is that is there for you at that time.
And what's not going to be intimidating for you.
Yeah. So that's when you ask your question, is whenever you are greeted by your guide, you've asked for help to find this information. You ask the question. You need to wait for the information to come to you in your actual consciousness. Now that you've put your question out there and you've requested the access to the records, the only thing left to do, like I said, is wait. Continue to breathe and meditate. Remain receptive to any information that floats into your consciousness, because this may be coming from the Akashic Records. And remember that the information you receive, it can take on different forms. You may hear, see it, taste it, feel it. Like Carrie said, however you receive information, this is how you're going to receive this information as well. Now, you may receive information about what you were like in a past life that could be disturbing, like you didn't think that that's a life you could have lived in the past. But just remember that's in the past, and don't judge yourself. Don't beat yourself up for what you're seeing if it is something that you find difficult to believe that you did in a past life. You're not being judged by that. You just need to be prepared because you don't remember what your past lives were. And that's what this Akashic record is there to help you through.
Yeah, but they're not going to show you something scary.
True. Potentially. You being burned at the stake is kind of scary.
They didn't actually show me being burned at the stake.
Ah, okay.
I saw the pyre. The clergy had my left wrist in his hand and was pulling me. So it didn't take much to assimilate the rest.
Gotcha.
But I did not see it because that would be disturbing.
Right.
You know, and I had a fear, just like, Kim, you had a fear of opening and accepting my gifts. And that fear also came from that moment.
Right.
Because what happened, which accessing the Akashic Records is the first step for past life regression, which doesn't mean you're going to do a past life regression if you access the Akashic Records. But if it's something that's followed you from a past life, yeah, that's your next step. But you may visit a life where you're a female in the 1700s and you were widowed with children and you had to do certain things to feed your children.
Mm-hmm.
You couldn't work. You had no security. And so those type of things you need to take in consideration what you're being shown, take into the consideration the time frame.
Right. Exactly.
In the time frame of my past life progression, there was the big religious conflict between Catholicism and Lutheranism. And then you had the conflict, and none of them liked witches, or if you just had to be accused of being a witch. So your healers, if they made the wrong person mad, got persecuted and burned.
Mm-hmm.
You got to take into context what you're seeing and what was the time frame like.
Right.
Because it makes perfect sense of my fear of developing my gifts. And once I did this Akashic record and then the past life regression, and I had to forgive them for what they did. A lot of it was, not to sound cold, but it's what was done during that time.
Yeah, exactly.
And a lot of people who were innocent were burned at the stake. It just took someone to accuse you and someone else to agree. That was the justice back then.
Mm-hmm.
So keep in mind, that's why you shouldn't if you are revealed something, don't be afraid of it. Because like I said, I never saw myself burned at the stake. I knew what happened. Just as that self-knowing you get as a psychic.
Yeah.
It was, oh, that's what happened. Okay. I wasn't agonized by it. But I was also there seeking answers.
Right. So they showed you what you were capable of
They
knowing
showed me
at that time.
What I'm capable of knowing. Exactly. Yeah, so you might see an aspect. You're not always going to be, like if you're a female now, some of your past lives, you're not going to be a female, you're going to be a male.
Yeah.
Because your soul is not male or female.
Yeah.
So you could do a past life and, well, that's a man. You got to be open to what kind of man were you? I mean, were you a bad guy? Did they put you on the guillotine? Did they, it's what did you do in that lifetime that's affecting you in this lifetime? Because that's what you're being shown.
Mm-hmm.
You're being shown what your stumbling block is or what you carried with you to the current life. And if it's something that far back, you've probably taken it with you several times into different lives.
Right.
And if you don't believe that you do different lives over and over again, this is not your episode.
Keep an open mind.
Keep an open mind.
Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of things, when you're first starting out in your spiritual journey, you hear that you've come across it in your research, you're like, I don't think so. And then like 3 years later, you're doing it.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
You're like, why didn't I do this sooner? Well, dummy, you chose not to because you didn't understand it.
Yeah.
But also wasn't ready to understand it.
No, that's true.
Yeah, but if you have a fear of something, you definitely want to do the Akashic Records. But you could really find out a lot. I mean, that right there was pivotal in my spiritual growth.
Mm-hmm.
Because I had an unfair bias against clergy.
Right.
But when one does me wrong, I'm like, yeah. Oh, you're one of those people, like, from my past life, you know. But it helped me in my spiritual journey to release that block of fear and understand why I had that fear.
Right.
So I recommend everybody try it.
Yeah. Yeah. When you're ready.
Yes, when you're ready.
Yeah. Now, if you ask about things that aren't part of your soul's history, like trying to witness JFK's assassination, John F. Kennedy's assassination firsthand, you're not going to see that because that's not meant for you. That's not your
Unless you were
past.
there.
Well, if you were
Yeah.
there, yes. But if you're
Yeah.
specifically asking to see it firsthand, that's not what it's going to happen. If you feel like if you're drawn to that, and
Yeah.
that is when you can ask the question about why are you drawn to that, but in a yes or no type of question, not open-ended. But it's not.
So don't treat it like it's the Enterprise and Scotty's going to beam you somewhere.
Right. That's not what it's there for, and that.
But I like the fact. I'm sorry.
Go
I
ahead.
like what you said. What you're drawn to, because I have always been drawn to that time period. Like any books I read. I mean, I had a whole collection of Henry VIII books, and he wasn't a nice man.
No, he
But I
wasn't.
had a collection of books. But I was fascinated by that time period, and I also was fascinated with the Civil War, which I had another past life regression that pertained to the Civil War.
Mm-hmm.
So what you said about if you're drawn to it, you may not understand why, but there's a reason.
Right. And that's what you can ask about in the Akashic Records. And
what's funny is once you do, I'm sorry,
That's
once
right.
you do the Akashic Record, and if it leads to a past life regression, your fascination with that time period goes away if you've done the work.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, because I mean, I still enjoy watching period shows and that, but I don't have the huge fascination like I did with having to have the books and having to read the stuff and all that. It's just that fascination kind of went away, and so is the fascination with the Civil War. I still would go to Gettysburg though.
Well,
yeah,
as long as everything stays there when you leave.
Yes, but that's more because it's haunted.
Exactly.
Because it's haunted, that's why I want to go. It has nothing to do with my fascination that I had once with the Civil War.
Right. Once you feel you've gotten information and images and such, or maybe you haven't, and you feel it's just time to go for now, and because it may not happen the first time around, you may have to return a couple of times. It is recommended that you close the records when you're done. Make a physical or mental closing of where you're at. Usually you don't want to leave.
I think that's important. That's important in anything you open. Anything you open, you want to close.
Right. Because you might not be able to access it the next time you go. It is important to just close anything or close the records before you move back to the current and the present. And then you've paid attention to what you were hearing, seeing, smelling, tasting. You've come out of your meditation. Immediately write down in your journal and where you've written your question the information that you've gotten. Now, Carrie does the automatic writing. I assume that would work well here in this instance.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
You write it down as soon as you get the hit.
Right, as soon as you get the hit.
You don't have to look at the page, just write.
Mm-hmm.
Don't judge your handwriting.
Right, but if you don't feel comfortable doing that, try to remember everything you can that you saw, and like I said, saw, felt, tasted. Write it all down, and that's when you begin your interpretation of what it is that you were given. So you just want to make certain that you open your eyes slowly and reorient yourself, because if you're in a deep meditation, you will feel a little off when you wake. You just don't want to do a sudden open your eyes up, because it is a little unsettling when that happens. I've done that before and gotten a little I was disoriented, like, where am I at? What was I doing? Kind of thing.
Yeah, you should always slowly come back from meditation, come back to yourself.
Yeah. So then the next time, if you didn't get the if you're not understanding the images and such that you received, come back the next day, try to do the same process again, relax, and just ask the permission again and go through the whole steps and ask if they could maybe make it a little bit clearer of an answer, image, make it sharper, more understandable. Show me something else to help me relate to this.
Different. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, something different. Yeah.
And then you can come back out of it until you can work through the answer that you are expecting. And it is hard, from what I understand. The first time you may not get in. You may not be focused enough. You may not be ready. So
I think the first time you're overthinking it.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah.
I could see that. Because I'm not ready yet myself, because I'm still overthinking sometimes in my regular meditations that I do, that it doesn't work as effectively. Like putting up barriers and blocks and bubbles and stuff. Sometimes it's not as strong as what it could be because I'm too wrapped up in today or tomorrow even.
I think sometimes it's where you're at in your day too.
Yeah, that too. Yeah.
You know, if it's at the end of your day and you've had a busy day, meditating to just kind of ground yourself is great, but trying to, deep dive into the Akashic Records, that might not be the time to do it.
Right.
Like when it's earlier in the morning when you haven't had to deal with life yet and it's more quiet.
Mm-hmm.
I do a lot of my meditating in the mornings when it's quiet.
Right.
I mean, I will meditate in the afternoon or evening if needed, but that's when it's the most quiet. If everybody's asleep but me,
mm-hmm.
I put the earbuds in and just do whatever form of meditation, whether I want music playing or just have my earbuds in just to help me concentrate.
Yeah, exactly. One thing that I had found, and I've read some of it, and I do recommend it to others if they're interested, is to find the old writings of Edgar Cayce, Cayce. He used the Akashic Records a lot in his psychic readings. That's how he got a lot of his information. His were focused specifically on healing and diagnosis of the origins of diseases and illnesses in individuals. So he accessed the Akashic Records a lot. And there's books of his readings out there, and they're really interesting.
His readings were really interesting because when he was doing a reading, he was using, I think it was his wife was the go-between.
I think so.
But he would speak with an accent
mm-hmm.
that he did not have normally.
Right.
Yeah. So it was his voice, but it was a different, I guess, tone
mm-hmm.
and accent and how he, he spoke more Old Bible.
Yeah. Well,
Old King James kind of talk.
Right, exactly. But that is the steps to get into the Akashic Records. Be patient whenever you're trying to do it because you may not get the answer that day. Don't feel bad. Don't feel bad upon yourself or anything like that. It'll get there.
Another thing to point out, this is what happened to me, was when I first started trying to access the Akashic Record, and before my past life regression, I was on one of my past lives. I started having dreams about that time period.
Mm.
So, if you don't get the answer right, then you may get it in a dream.
Mm-hmm.
Because if that's the easiest way to communicate where you're at in your process,
mm-hmm.
then and your dreams are very similar to meditation, although you're sleeping. But we do get visitations in our dreams, and we do get psychic hits in our dreams.
Mm-hmm.
Don't be surprised if after you do the Akashic Record and you don't feel like you've got an answer, but you have a weird dream a couple days later, you may want to analyze that dream to see if it had anything to do with the question you were asking.
Yes.
While visiting the Akashic Records.
That is a very good point. That was something that I remember that I read about, is that you've written down your words after your experience while you were at the Akashic Records and the images you saw and everything. And if it doesn't make sense to you, like Carrie said, that is when you might get the actual strange dream. You write that dream down in that journal and you compare the two. You'll be surprised that the images that you, or the feelings or sensations or whatever you received during your Akashic record search matches that dream that you had. That was really detailed dream.
Yeah.
I forgot about that part. Thank you for
I
bringing that
gotcha.
up. Yeah, you did.
I gotcha.
Now, there are people out there that are professional Akashic Records readers that you could learn from or have readings done for you. But everywhere I read said to be extremely careful there, because there are a lot of people out there that are just out there for the money and not necessarily to do the readings to help people on their journeys, on their soul's journeys. So they have ill intent out there, and unfortunately it's with these Akashic records that they take advantage of people. So, not saying everybody's that way. I'm just saying, you
have that in the psychic community as well.
Yes, but everywhere I read, there was a line there about there are professionals out there, but you have to be very careful, because there's a lot that aren't.
You need to do your research. Mm-hmm. You need to do your research. Right. Just like if you were to get a professional psychic reading, mm-hmm. You're just not going to drive down the street. Oh, there's one. There's a palm in the window. Let me go see. You want to check out and see if this is a reputable person. What kind of, reviews have they got? Mm-hmm. I've got my personal person I use. And I've gone to places where there's been psychics, and I've had them give me readings, but she's the one I'm truly connected with.
Right.
I've had a few where they're like, they couldn't put their finger on it, but they knew there was something, but they couldn't quite put their finger on it. They're like, and kept looking at me. And I'm like, I'm not going to tell you I'm psychic. Yeah. Figure it out.
It out. So that's what I found out there. I didn't go look up deep meditations to recite to everyone, because I could give you quite a few, but it's not going to mean anything if it doesn't touch your soul.
And you got to do the work. Mm-hmm. You got to do the work, and part of that is, listening to different kind of guided meditations to find the one that resonates with you, that's going to work well with how you visualize things. Mm-hmm. And that's going to depend on your abilities on how you see things. But one thing with this is the Akashic Records are there to help you. They're not there to hurt you.
Right.
Because you're accessing you. It's your information. It's your soul. It's really important. I mean, it could help you resolve inner conflicts. I mean, it can help you with past life. It could just open up so many doors. But you got to make sure you just give it time to build your confidence with it too.
Right.
Don't get discouraged if you don't feel that it worked the first 2 or 3 times.
Right. Be patient. Just practice daily meditations yourself, whether it's for the Akashic Records or not. But it helps you get into that meditative state, so that whenever you want to access the Akashic Records, you can get yourself into that state and get your vibration up higher.
Yeah, and a lot of it is just asking you the tough questions. Okay, well, did I ground myself before I started this? Mm-hmm. Was I truly grounded? What was going on in my mind? Was my mind quieted, or whether I kept having to draw myself back?
Did I clear my space? Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right. Did I ask for protection before starting this journey? Because even though you're accessing your Akashic record, you should always ask for protection before you do anything within the psychic realm.
Well, yeah, because there's all kinds of things out there. Some not necessarily nice. Some things that aren't nice.
Some go bump in the night.
Yeah.
And there are courses, like we've talked about before, where you can, take a course on it. Because if you're an analytical learner and that's how you gain trust in doing something, is taking a course on it. I take lots of courses. Mm-hmm. Kim can tell you I'm always signing up for a course.
Yes, she does.
But I'm constantly feeling a need to learn. And if it resonates with me, I'm going to listen to it. Will I take a couple courses? Maybe, maybe not. I get that one course done, and then, what did I need to learn from that course? So if you feel that you need to take a course on how to access the Akashic with a more, school class kind of setting, then maybe do that as well.
Right.
But if you do a daily practice of anything, it's easier to do it each time you do it.
Right.
So if you're not doing a daily meditation, you may want to start with getting back into that practice before you try to access the Akashic Record, because you're going to be automatically going into that grounding and that protection. And then it's easier to go to the next step because your vibration's already rising.
Yeah, that's good. Good point. That's all I have on this one.
I was going to say, is there anything else you want to add to the Akashic Records?
I think that's it for me. Is there anything else you need to add or want to add?
Well, just like we talked about, find what resonates with you. That's what's important. And the Akashic Record may not resonate with you right here, right now, but 6 months down the road, something might happen in your life, and you feel that something's holding you back from being successful, or something's holding you back from developing your spiritual growth or getting the right job. This could be something that the Akashic Records could help you with.
Right.
Whether it leads you to a past life regression, whether it shows you what the block is. But once it shows you, but you need to also be prepared to do the work, which is necessary to remove the block so you can move forward.
Right. Exactly.
I came across a meme on Facebook. I can't quote it to you exactly. Let me just paraphrase. It was just kind of like, Spirit can't give you your dream job if you don't go to the interview.
Yeah, true.
So if you don't go out and put yourself out there to look for the job, you'll never get an interview. And then therefore you'll never get your job.
Right.
So you also have to be willing to, if whatever is, holding you back happens to be something that happened in your past life, then that is the next step, is past life regression, which maybe that'll be our next episode. No, we don't, maybe an episode coming up, not the next episode, but an episode coming up with past life regression.
I think that would be very interesting.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's all I have for this episode, Kim. You have anything else?
No, I don't think so.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you. Thank you, listeners, for listening to this episode of Psychic Bent. Please reach out to us if you have any comments, questions, episode ideas. You could reach out to us on our Psychic Bent podcast Facebook page and on Instagram. And also you can email us at
psychicbent1@gmail.com.
And do like us on all the platforms you do listen to the podcast. We do appreciate that. And do recommend us. Tell all your friends, family, whatever. Share us on your Facebook.
And
why not?
Yeah, there is one other thing just popped into my head. Tomorrow, when this episode drops, that next day is the anniversary of when we dropped our first episode. 1-year anniversary.
Yay.
Very proud of us.
Yay. Woohoo.
Woohoo. So thank you, everybody.
Well, yes, there's a lot of work that goes into a podcast. So it's not just sitting there and just talking. It may seem that way, but that's not. There's a lot of work done. And of course, Kim does a lot of behind the scene work with the majority of the Facebook posts and, of course, editing and putting together the podcast. So thank you, Kim.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for keeping us on track.
Well, I don't know about that, but okay.
You do.
Okay. All right, listeners. Thanks for listening. Bye.
Bye. May your light shine bright.
Thank you so much for listening to our podcast, Psychic Bent. If you enjoyed Psychic Bent, please like, follow, rate, review, and subscribe wherever you listen to Psychic Bent. We can be reached on Facebook at Psychic Bent Podcast. Our email address is psychicbent1@gmail.com. May your light shine bright.